So the Homo sapiens appears about 200,000 years ago, and appears in Africa, then it moves around and so forth. So that's eventually, very recently, reaches the Americas. Two things that you don't normally hear about. One is the population of Homo sapiens. Right? Homo sapiens spread a lot, but actually the population was really, really, really teeny until very recently. And this is years before Christ. So until about here, which is pretty much when the Roman Empire, the Han Empire appear, east and west, population was really minimal. We have no evidence of major cities before that time. And the second thing that they usually don't tell you, I started thinking about it a few years ago. I was in northern France where they have, some ancient ruins, and they have a nice museum. And finally, they had a diagram of the estimated age of all the cadavers they found, all the bodies they found. And it was impressive. The median age is like 18, and then that's obvious. I mean, people were dying very early back then. Even a century ago, the life expectancy was very low, right? If you go back thousands of years, life expectancy was extremely low. Somebody my age was considered a miracle. I mean, you managed it to 60, wow. Okay. So two things that people don't normally pay attention to: the population was very small, and second, those were very young societies. Okay, so try to imagine the United States of America run by politicians who are in their 20s. Well, that's the way the world was until pretty much the Roman Empire. Okay, and some of the famous ones were really young. Alexander was what, early 20s, I don't remember exactly. So try to imagine societies run by very young people. Now, those very young people were way more mature than our young people, right? Because they probably had to start caring about food, the moment that they could walk, and they were probably already parents at the age of 14, 15. Fine, but still, that's just, neuroscience tells you that just the brain takes time to develop. Okay, so there were societies where the brain was not fully mature, and that's what society was like. So to me, that also has an impact on a lot of the violence that was endemic, and some other things. Anyway.
Oh, so do we know what parts of our modern day brains are more recent?
Oh yeah. But for that you have to take my other class. It's a long story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So neuroscience is showing a lot of these things. And it's interesting. It's interesting also, coming back to the story, why human civilization became male-dominated and female-dominated. It's also interesting that if you look at young people, it is not just a stereotype. It is scientifically proven that the female brain matures faster, earlier. Okay? And actually by quite a few years. So in a very young society, who knows, maybe women were the most mature, and so maybe it made a lot of sense that we're in charge when, being mature was more important than being violent. And then as population grows, density grows, then violence becomes more important. Anyway, speculation. So the way you can see the history of our species, of our civilization, is really through a number of revolutions. Of course, we know extremely little before about 3000 BC. So 5,000 years, it's history in some parts of the world. Mesopotamia, China, India. 5,000 years ago, you start seeing written records. So you can sort of guess what was going on. Before that, it's really a wild guess. Okay? So the first 195,000 years of Homo sapiens, actually I say 100,000, 150,000 BC, whatever the date is, those are still largely mystery. I mean, we find skeletons. And then we can sort of look around and see were they eating meat or what, but what we know is really very little. And those paintings tell us even less. There's so many different theories about this thing. If you are into New Age, oh, this is all spiritual, and so on and so on. And if you are a school teacher, the school teacher once told me, these are the kind of things that children would do. So maybe in those cases it was just children, in their spare time. So we know very little before 3000 BC. That's the truth. And then somehow we go from here to this is. The Chinese are way more addicted than us. I took this picture in the subway. So the whole picture is much longer, and everybody, not a single person was staring at anything, and no books. I haven't seen a single book, a single magazine, a single newspaper in the whole trip. I was in Beijing, Shanghai, Hangzhou, Chengdu, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen. I didn't see one person reading a book or a magazine, a newspaper. It's all smartphones, non-stop. Anyway, so we went from there to how? Well, first of all, there was some kind of religious revolutions. I mean, whether animals believe in the afterlife or not, I don't know. But I know the humans not only bury the dead and bury the dead with objects, but we built incredibly complex systems of beliefs and rituals around something that we cannot experimentally prove. So at some point there was this religious revolution. And then there was an artistic revolution, because at some point we also start doing something really funny. We waste time and materials to paint or to build little figurines. It's true, birds build sometimes beautiful nests, but it's a nest. It has a purpose, okay? And it's not clear what purpose this serves. So that's the artistic revolution. Then you have an agricultural revolution, and that's important, because that's when we start seeing things really happen. That's when you have cities. The moment you have architecture, agriculture, you have cooperation, and then you have people living together and sharing the surplus and organizing activities. That's the beginning of the city, then it's the beginning of the state, and so on. Metals were very important. We still have Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age. That makes a huge difference, not only for the tools, but unfortunately for the number of people you can kill. Okay? So whenever a civilization discovers a new material, which in old days was mainly the metals, then something big happens. Then cities start appearing, the original city-states, that's also a major revolution. Of course, writing. The moment there is writing, their life probably didn't change much. I don't think many people knew how to read and write. But our knowledge of their life changes dramatically. Finally, we have some record, okay? Yeah, it's kind of funny to think that somebody giving this class 10,000 years from now, if we're still around, will have videos and countless pictures, and we'll probably be puzzled by all these videos on YouTube of cats. There was a civilization obsessed with cats. They must have had some supernatural beliefs about cats. The spiritual revolution, I don't remember who was the historian who first noticed that you have Buddha, Confucius, and Socrates, basically, the great Greek philosopher at the same time. Okay? It's very distant parts of the world that may or may not have known of each other. At the same time, you have this spiritual awakening in these places. Then, of course, scientific revolution with Galileo and Darwin and Newton, and then we are living this, this exponential progress in the use of computers and files and bytes. And so, anyway, that's in a nutshell what we're going to talk. Now, that's a slide where I wanted to be. Which was the first tool in your opinion? And this is just guesswork, right? Because we weren't there. But the first thing you will call a tool, and usually they focus not on this, honestly. I mean, everybody knows that this is fairly recent. But usually everybody focuses, most historians will tell you, it's something that has to do with violence. It's,
or food.
To hunt, hunt, but that's also violence. It's hunt, or fighting or whatever. What's your guess? If you had to think, what was the first tool that humans invented?
It wouldn't just be your little rocks at the top, right?
Yeah, some possibility.
That's my guess.
Yeah, something for food collection, I mean.
Something for food collection. Yeah.
I would have said the rocks at the top as well.
Yeah, so my theory is different, and that came really from Africa. These are all recent pictures, more or less recent pictures, so this is still today Africa. Before the mighty warrior or hunter can go out and hunt, he or she has to survive a very tough childhood, okay? Human infants are among the most helpless in nature. You cannot leave a child alone today. You could not leave a child alone back then, where there were very dangerous animals around, whatever. So for that child to grow up and look for food, hunt or whatever, the mom had to be there all the time. And the mom, just like today in Africa, had to move a lot. These women are going to look for water, or yeah, this one is carrying probably water or some other thing, and they always carry the baby with them. Okay? So to me, this was the first thing. That's just my opinion. Okay? But historians are mostly male, and they don't they don't do this. They've never done this. So I think most historians don't think about that tool. They think of hunting, war, whatever. Okay?
I suppose it also doesn't really last as long as a piece of stuff. I mean, there's less evidence.
Yeah, there's less
to be
evidence,
found,
right,
so, yeah.
right. You don't really find it anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's amazing how natural it is. I mean,
Yeah.
for a Western woman, it would probably be pretty annoying. But you know, this woman is just there with the baby back on the back. And this actually, I hope somebody's writing, some psychologist is writing books about this, because it must make a difference for the baby to be attached to the mother for such a long time. You know, because this what, 2-3 years old, and constantly walk with their mother. Anyway, so that's just guesswork, okay? I just like the idea that maybe we're thinking, because historians tend to be male, maybe they're not focusing on the right, you know, and they're old, so most of them don't tell you that societies were very young. That's where societies of kids, okay? Okay, now, pretty much every book written on a human civilization tells you about the river valleys, the river valley civilizations. There's 4 big ones. Egypt, Mesopotamia. This is actually Pakistan now. That's the birthplace of Indian civilization, but you know, Pakistan and India split. So now the Indo Valley is in Pakistan and in China. So that's fine. I mean, that is true. There's no argument against that. And those are the big ones, actually, that we're going to see tonight and tomorrow and next week. But I want to say from the beginning that that's not enough. You know, a lot of the history actually came from people who had nothing to do with the river valleys. If you think of it, there's been so many invasions that came from this part of the world. It's just incredible. This part of the world has pretty much nothing appealing. Okay? There's no major, it's either tundra or wars. It's just, but still, I mean, think, first of all, the Indo-Europeans, so both Europe and India, you know, the Indo-Europeans came from this part, probably the other side of the Euro. So today is the part of Russia where Russians don't want to live. And then think of the Turks, the Mongols. Okay? These were major invasions. They really changed the world. So, you know, it's true. River valley civilizations were the big ones that built the pyramids and came up with all the big religions and so on. But these people also really shaped human civilization. And the difference, of course, most of the people who came from here, when they came, they didn't write, didn't leave us major artworks. So there's less to say, you know. I could have spent an evening talking about these people in 3000 BC. That's it. There's very little left. But they were very important. And by the way, they went both ways. China Why China built the Great Wall? To protect from whom? People coming from this part of the world. You know, they are barbarians. Who might have been the same ones, by the way. That's not a long story. So anyway, these are the main empires. I actually listed the Maya and the Inca just because we are in the American continent. But these are the main empires that ruled our planet, and main in terms of influence. Okay, the influence they had on the developed civilization. That's why Maya and Inca, they don't really belong here because their influence was not that great. But so tonight we start here, and then tomorrow we also do China and India, and then Middle Ages, and then more and more modern until our days. And so this slide is like a summary of the centuries, the region, what was the capital, and so on.